Okay, welcome to lesson 6.4. Today we're going to talk about writing equations of lines in slope-intercept form. So far we've done a lot of graphing given the equation or finding the slope and y-intercept from the equation. Well, today we're going to talk about creating equations given some different information. So your aim today is that I can write an equation of a line in the form of y equals mx plus b from a graph, 2 points, or a point in the slope. One skill that we need to become fluent in Algebra 1 is creating the equation of a linear function. We will concentrate on learning how to form equations in the slope-intercept form that we've been working with. So this big box right here is just reminding you of what y equals mx plus b is. Okay? Where that number in front of the x, m, is your average rate of change or your slope, and the b, the number by itself, plus or minus, is your y-intercept. So we're always going to keep this in mind, and you should memorize this information. Alright, so let's take a look at what exercise 1 is about. Exercise 1 says, consider the linear function whose graph is shown. So all we have right here is the graph. We don't have the slope, y-intercept, nothing. We just have the graph. So letter A says, determine an equation in the form of y equals mx plus b for this line. So when you get a graph and you have to find the equation, you're going to look for two things. You're going to look for the y-intercept, and you're going to look for the slope. The easiest thing to find is our y-intercept. Our y-intercept is this point right here where it crosses the y-axis. So I know that my y-intercept equals b, and b equals a -2. So I have my b value right here. B is going to be -2. But now I have to find my slope. Now remember that slope equals rise over run. So if I can find 2 points and find the rise over run, then I can find my actual value. So I'm going to pick a couple other points on this graph, and I'm going to make sure that they intersect at an integer. So I'm going to pick this point right here, the red one, and then I'm going to pick this one right here. All the other points don't actually hit integers, they hit decimals. So I'm going to pick these points, I'm going to calculate the rise over the run. So I'm going to start here and I'm going to count how many it takes me to go up. 1, 2, 3. And then how many does it take me to go over? 1, 2. So it looks like my rise is 3 up and 2 over. Let's try it again just to make sure. I'm going to go up 1, 2, 3, and I'm going to go over 1, 2. So it works. So I found out that m equals 3 over 2. And now I can write my equation. So my equation is going to be y equals m is 3 over 2. Oops, my pen stopped working. 3 over 2 x, and then my y-intercept is I'm sorry, my y-intercept is a +2, not a -2. My apologies. So it should be +2 here. Okay, so there's my equation from the line given a graph. So you find your slope, find your y-intercept, and you can have your equation. Okay? Now we're going to try and see if it works. So it wants me to test to see if my equation is true if I plug in the number 2. So I can go up to here, and I know that if I have the point 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, this is the point 2, 5. So I know that if I plug in 2, I should get 5 based on this point right here. So we're going to test that by plugging it in. So I have y equals 3 over 2x plus 2, but now I'm going to plug in, for x, I'm going to plug in the number 2. When I use my calculator, I get that 3 over 2 times 2 is 3, and 3 plus 2 is 5, so my equation is correct. Okay, it's a good way to test to see if your equation you wrote is correct. Okay? When the y-intercept is an integer, meaning an integer is a whole number, such as in the last exercise. So see how in this one the y-intercept was a +2. It's fairly easy to get the exact relationship between x and y. But let's try another graph problem where the y-intercept is not an integer, where the y-intercept is a decimal or a fraction. So here's exercise 2. Find the equation of the linear function shown in slope-intercept form, and then test your equation for x equals -4. So my first problem here is that I don't know what b is. Normally I'd start off with this, but I'm going to put this. b is unknown. I know that it's right here on my graph. It's right there, but that point is a decimal. I can't really, I'd have to estimate it, and I want an exact calculation. So in order to do this, we've got to find a couple other points to help narrow this down. So I'm going to take my graph and I'm going to find all the points where it touches integers. So there it touches an integer, there it touches here, and it touches here. So I've got these 4 points to work with, and I know with those 4 points I can find my slope. So it's rise over run, which is m. So let's find our rise over run. So I'm going to pick a point, and I go up 1, so I go up +1, and then I go to the left 1, 2, 3. So that's a -3. So my slope is 1 over -3. And if I keep checking that, go up 1, 1, 2, 3, it's going to stay 1 over 3 the whole time. Okay? I'm just going to erase that so I have a better picture of my graph. So my slope is 1 over -3. I use my rise over run. So right now, if I were to plug this into my equation, I would have y equals, I'm going to plug in my slope, -1/3 x, and then I'd have this plus b I don't know. I need to find out this b. How can I find out the b? Well, I have an x and a y that I can plug something into. I have 4 points here on this graph. I've got 4 of them. I've got a point here at 1, 2, 3, 4, at 5, 0. I have this point at 2, 1. I have this point at -1, 2. And I have this point at -4, 3. I have 4 points, so I just have to pick one. Any one I want. So I'm going to pick this one right here. I'm going to pick the -1, 2 point. So this is the point that I'm going to pick. I'm going to put it in green. -1, 2. And with this point, -1, 2, I know that the -1 is x and the 2 is the y. So when I go to plug this in, I'm going to replace y with a 2, keep the -1/3 as my slope, and replace the x with the x value in the point, which is -1. And then I'm trying to solve for b, so I'm going to leave that b by itself. And now I've created an equation where I can simplify, solve, and get the value of b that I don't know from the graph. So let's go ahead and solve this. The 2 carries down. -1/3 times -1 becomes a +1/3 plus b. I want to get b alone, so I'm going to subtract 1/3 from both sides. They cancel out, and 2 minus 1/3 gives me 5/3, which equals b. Now I know what my y-intercept is, so I can finally rewrite my equation in y equals mx plus b form as y equals -1/3 x plus 5/3. Okay, the 5/3 was my b, and the -1/3 was my m. So there's a little bit of additional math here we had to do. We had to plug in the x and y, solve, find b algebraically because we couldn't find it visually, and then rewrite the equation in y equals mx plus b form. It's a pretty tricky skill, but it's something that we've really got to be good at for the Regents. All right? Okay, turn your page in your notes. Let's take a look at exercise 3. We need to also be able to find the equation for a linear function if we know just 2 points that lie on it. Kind of like what we just did before. But this is without the graph, where it's just giving you 2 points. So, exercise 3, find the equation of the line that passes through each of the following pairs of points in y equals mx plus b form. So in this type of problem, they want you to find the equation. They're not giving you a graph, they're just giving you 2 points. So it's very similar to the way we previously did the last one, only there's just no picture. So the first thing we're going to find is our slope. Now, I'm going to do this first one with you, and then you're going to pause and try to do the rest on your own. Okay, because it's the same process for all 4 of these. It's just different combinations of numbers, positive and negative. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is find our slope, which is our change in y over change in x. So we're going to subtract our y values. So the y values here are 17 and 5. So I'm going to do 17 minus 5 over our x values, which is 5 and positive 2. So I'm going to subtract these two things. I'm going to simplify. 17 minus 5 gives me 12, and 5 minus 2 gives me 3, and 12 divided by 3 gives me 4. So I know that my slope is 4. Okay? Now that I know my slope is 4, I'm going to do some plugging in. I'm going to plug in to y equals mx plus b. And I know everything but b. I know a y and the x because I've given 2 points. So I'm going to plug in. So I always just plug in the first point. So I'm going to label this 2 with my x and the 5 as the y. And, keeping in mind that the 4 is your m. Okay, so I've got all 3 of these variables that I know, and now I'm going to plug them in. So instead of a y, I'm going to plug in 5 from my point. Equals, instead of m, I'm going to plug in 4 from my m I found up there. My x is up here, and that's a positive 2. I'm just plugging these values in here, making sure these pen colors are right so you can see it better. And then I'm trying to find b, so I'm just going to, of course, put plus b so I can solve this equation. Now I solve, I get 5 equals 4 times 2 is 8 plus b. Subtract 8 on both sides. 5 minus 8 is negative 3, so negative 3 equals b. That's not what the question wants, though. The question wants y equals mx plus b form. So I have to take all this information and say, okay, my final equation with all the stuff, I'll do it in green, so my final equation is going to be, hold on, let me read, I don't have much room here. So my equation is y equals, m is 4, x plus, now I don't want to put plus negative 3, so I'm just going to take away that plus and put minus 3. So this is my solution. Y equals 4x minus 3. 4 I got from the slope being m, and negative 3 I got when I solved for b. Okay? Now, I would pause the video right now and try doing a few of these on your own. Okay? It's some tricky math, it's some solving, watch your signs, but you're not going to learn if you don't try to do this by yourself. So please pause the video and try and do B, C, and D on your own, and then when you unpause, I'm going to walk through the process. All right? Good luck. Okay, welcome back. Let's get started. So the first thing I need to do is find m, change in y over change in x. So my x's are 5 and 3. So I get 3 minus 5. I'm going to always do the back to the front, and then 2 minus negative 2. Please watch your signs. Please, please, please. 3 minus 5 is negative 2. 2 minus negative 2 becomes 2 plus 2, which would give me 4. So my slope here is negative 1/2. So there's my m. Okay. Now I'm going to do my plug-in to y equals mx plus b. I'm going to pick my my first point here to be x and y. So when I plug in for y, I'm going to have a 5. And when I plug in for x, I'm going to have a negative 2. This is going to equal, and then I've got to plug in my negative 1/2. And then I just have to find my b. Okay? Now we simplify and solve. 5 equals negative 1/2 times negative 2 will give me a positive 1. If I use my calculator, plus b. Now this is easy. I just, oops, made that too big. Now I just subtract 1 from both sides. 5 minus 1 is 4, so I get that 4 equals b. Now that I know my m and my b, I can write my equation, which is y equals negative 1/2 that I got from my m up here, x, and then plus 4, which is my b. Okay? If you made a mistake, it's probably because you didn't calculate the slope correctly. You probably made a sign error. So in the future, always remember your signs and always be very careful about what order you put your x's and y's in. Okay? All right, letter C. Always first thing, find your slope. So subtract your y's first, -4 minus 11 over 4 minus -1. This becomes -15 over 4 minus -1 will give me 5. So I end up with a slope of -3. Now I get to do my plug-in. So plug in to y equals mx plus b. I'm always going to use my first point as my x and my y, so label the x and the y. So y is going to be changed to an 11, x is going to be changed to a -1. Then we plug in the rest. So this is going to equal m. Oops, I messed up my screen. Let me fix that. Sorry. There we go. My apologies, guys. I don't know what button I pressed there. Alright, let's come back. I got to plug in my slope, so I have a -3 here for my m, and then I just carry down my plus b because that's what I need to figure out. Now I can solve. 11 equals -3 times -1 becomes a +3 plus b. Subtract the 3 on both sides. They cancel out. 11 minus 3 is 8, and I get 8 as my y-intercept or my b. And now I can plug everything in and get my equation. So my equation is going to be y equals m, which is -3, x plus 8, which is my b. Okay? Finally, one last one. Again, notice the process is the same every time. Find your slope, change in y's over your change in x, subtract your y's. So 19 minus 4 over 12 minus 3. 19 minus 4 is 15. And 12 minus 3 is 9. This is a fraction that reduces to 5 over 3. So that is my m. Alright, now, oh my gosh, I keep messing up my screen. Now I have to plug in. So I'm going to plug in to y equals mx plus b form, figuring out that my x and y is always my one of these points. So y becomes 4. X becomes 3, and I plug in the rest, equals, m is 5 over thirds, so I've got to plug in that fraction, and then I'm trying to find b, so this becomes plus b. Okay, now I've got to solve this, so I get 4 equals 5/3 times 3 on my calculator becomes a 5 when I multiply, plus b. Subtract the 5 on both sides, and I get 4 minus 5 is -1. So -1 is my b. And now that I've found both m and b, I can write my equation. Y equals m, 5/3, x minus 1. Okay? Alright, let's look at a word problem as our last problem for this process. Exercise 4. Now this is a really challenging problem. This took me a few tries to even figure out. So, if this is something that you're confused about, please come talk to me. We'll work it out together. I'll answer your questions. But underline where I underline. Take good notes here because this problem's a little bit tricky. Alright, a car is traveling along a straight road. When I say this word straight, that automatically clues me in that there's probably going to be something where I need to use that form. Because straight means a line. So I'm going to underline that and remind myself that's important. After 1 hour, the car is 72 miles from Chicago. After 3 hours, the car is 188 miles from Chicago. Determine an equation for the distance d the car is from Chicago after h hours if the relationship is linear. There's that linear word again, so I know for sure I'm using a line. Now this problem has given me two important pieces of information. It's given me after 1 hour, the car is 72 miles. So that's the important part. At 1 hour, I've gone 72 miles. And I can write that as a point. I could say that's 1, 72. Okay, I have a second point here. After 3 hours, the car is 188 miles. So at 3 hours, the car is 188 miles. So there's another point, 3, 188. So I've got 2 points. And what's this question want me to figure out? This question wants me to write an equation. Well, didn't I just previously before find equations given 2 points? Isn't that what exercise 3 was about? So I've basically taken this word problem and created now a problem where, oh, I just have 2 points. Let's find the slope, find the y-intercept, and get my equation. So let's go ahead and do that. Use my red pen to find slope, so the change in y over the change in x. I'm going to subtract my y's, so 188 minus 72 over 3 minus 1. 188 minus 72 is 116. 3 minus 1 is 2. 116 divided by 2 is 58. So I've found my slope, or my m. Okay? Now I'm going to plug in like I did before. So I'm going to plug my information into y equals mx plus b form. I'm going to use my blue pen again to show that I'm going to define a point as x and y. So instead of a y, I'm going to plug in 72. And instead of an x, I'm going to plug in the 1. Instead of m, I'm going to plug in that 58 that I just found. And I'm looking to find my b. Now I can solve 72 equals 58 times 1 is 58 plus b. Subtract 58 from both sides. 72 minus 58 is 14. So there I have my b. Now that I have m and b, I can write my equation like I did before. My equation is y equals, my slope is 58, x plus 14. But I've got one problem, because if I was paying very close attention, I would have noticed that this problem in particular is asking me to write this in terms of d and h. Okay? So if I look at my points here, x is 1 and 3, y is 72 and 88. Well, notice that 72 is miles, so that means that y isn't really y, it's d. And 1 hour is a form of time, so x isn't really x, it's going to be h. So I'm just going to take this equation, and I'm going to convert the letters to match. So instead of a y, I'm going to have d equals 58h plus 14. Now I've got an equation that's in the right letters, variables the problem wanted, and I found my slope and y-intercept to create my equation. Okay? Any questions, please ask me, Ms. Stammer, Ms. Vasquez. You do have mastery after this lesson, and it goes with lesson 6.3 for mastery. Okay? Good luck.